Advices Radio Network.
Franco is pretty smart, but Franco is a child. And when it comes to the day of the contest, I'm his father. He comes to me for advices. So it's not that hard for me to give him the wrong advices.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Advices Radio. You're listening to episode number 92. I'm your host, Scott McNally, and this program is brought to you by TrueNutrition.com. You can use our code ADVICES at checkout for additional savings on awesome supplements that you probably would have used anyway. Plus, it gives you an opportunity to let them know that you support the shows. Today, we have with us IFBB Pro Dorian Haywood and his coach, Dave Kalick. But before we get to that, I want to mention a couple of things. First of all, are you coming to the Arnold Classic? If so, then you got to hang out with us. We are doing a live podcast event. This will be the first of its kind in bodybuilding. It's been Arnold approved. We will be at the convention center just down the hall from the expo. So come and check us out. Hang out. We're going to do a meet and greet. It starts at 9 a.m. It'll last till 11 a.m. This will be on Saturday morning, March 2nd. After the meet and greet, we are going to record a podcast, and we are going to do it with all of you. So it's going to be a lot of fun. You guys are a huge part of what makes this all possible. If it wasn't for our listenership, we really wouldn't have a reason to podcast. And it's been awesome to get to talk to everybody on social media and through the Advices message board. But this will give us a chance to hang out face to face, and we are going to have a good time recording the show. It's going to be super interactive. You guys will get a chance to participate and ask questions. So come on down. It'll be a lot of fun. This whole thing is sponsored by the best bar ever. So thank you, Best Bar and Michael Clay, for making this event happen. We're going to be representing in almost full force. We're only going to be a couple guys from the whole network that aren't going to be there. So it kind of blows my mind that we can get everybody together in one room. We'll have VJ Peary, Dr. Steve Ogden. We're going to have IFBB Pro Haley Delph and Ryan Delph, even though Ryan is competing the day before. So shout out to him for even being able to hang with us. It looks like Austin Stout is going to stop by. And our sister, Sarah the Bruce, is going to be there too. So I'm really pumped for that. And guys, I'm burying the lead. We've got Skip Hill and Dr. Scott Stevenson. So come on down, get a chance to meet everybody. Scott will have his book there. It's going to be a lot of fun. We are going to have a raffle and prizes. It's going to be cool. So guys, come on down and make history with us at the Arnold Classic for the first live podcast event in the history of bodybuilding. All right, guys, one last note. I wanted to ask you, have you been listening to The Come Up? It's our new show here at Advices. It's with Haley and Ryan. They're doing a kick-ass job. They're 3 episodes deep, and it's getting better as it goes. I love it. It's been a lot of fun. It might be my favorite new podcast out. This week they have one of the owners of Arsenal Strength, which is a really cool equipment company. They make awesome gym equipment, and they're making big waves in the sport of bodybuilding. So guys, if you haven't checked this show out, definitely do. All right, let's get to our program. Today, we are going to talk with IFBB Pro Dorian Haywood and his coach, Dave Kalick. Yes, any excuse we have to bring Dave back on makes my day. So we've got Dave and Dorian. Listen, I got a chance to meet Dorian last year. It was at the Arnold, actually. And I remember Dave telling me, he was like, well, Dorian's a little flat right now. We've been pushing pretty hard. And then he says, hey, Dorian, we're going to do a cheat meal. And so my ears perk up. I'm listening in. I'm looking for the advices that Dave has to share. And he has him eat a burger and drink a regular Coke. And I look down the table like 20 minutes later, and I swear to God, Dorian is like covered in sweat and just had veins just everywhere through his neck. It was crazy. It was really a sight to see. And I'll tell you, it's great to have Dorian on the show today. Listen, he did like 5 contests last year. You learn a lot from that. And he just came from Gary Udit seminar that he held at Dylan Arbrust's gym, the Mile High Mecca out there in Colorado. So we're going to talk to him about what he learned from Gary, what he learned from the last contest season, and we're going to talk about what the guys are doing to bring Dorian in at hopefully what will be his all-time best this year. Plus, at the end, we get a great story. Dorian tells us about Dave getting kicked out of the Slayer mosh pit. So you're going to want to stick around for that. Guys, thank you for listening to the programs. I hope to see you at the Arnold Classic. Here we go. All right, guys, welcome back to Advices Radio. And up next, I am super pumped for this because A, we've got our favorite coach back on the mic, Dave Kalick, and B, we've got somebody that we haven't talked to before, IFBB Pro Dorian Haywood. Dorian, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm glad to do this.
Cool, man. And Dave, welcome back for like the 100th time.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. What's up?
Not much, man. How's everything going over there in California, Dave?
Well, it's fucking freezing over here. It was actually 35 degrees last night. You would think Southern California, right? But it does get cold here. Yeah, it's good. Everything's going good.
We got to like 35 here in Detroit the other day, and I went outside without a jacket on. I was in my T-shirt. I thought that was like summertime. I'm going to throw that out there.
Yeah, I'm sure for you, yeah, 35 over there. But keep in mind, I grew up in New York, where we talked about this, where I'm used to, freezing the testicles off. But over here, when you're living here for a while, the 35 is you feel it. That's for sure.
Where are you at, Dorian?
I am in Denver, Colorado, and I think I got you guys beat.
Ooh.
It snowed real hard on Monday. We got like 5-6 inches, and it just hasn't gone away just because it's been so cold.
No kidding, man. And you train over there at Armbrust Pro Gym, right?
That's right. They call it the Mile Mecca. They call that for a reason, man. Everybody in the area that's serious bodybuilder shows up and trains over there at Armbrust. It's the place to be. Yeah. I also run my chiropractic practice out of there and train people out of there as well.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't realize that your chiropractic business was actually at the facility there.
Man, it's all tied together, and it works so great for me. It flows so easily,
Yeah.
I can get my training in, get my cardio in, see some patients, train some people, and not really have to go any place besides that gym.
Dude, you're basically living the life then. That's like the bodybuilder's dream right there.
I'm set up.
What's it like at Armbrust Pro Gym on a Sunday? Because I hear that's leg day at out there in Colorado.
When I first started coming to that gym, I was training legs on a Saturday. Then I noticed all the big boys were in there training on Sunday, making noise and getting intense and bringing that atmosphere. So I had to switch it up myself. I started training legs on Sunday just to feed off that energy in that room.
Yeah.
But if you're back there on the Sunday, usually Adam Young's back there training, IFBB Pro 212. Brent Wilkes is back there. Ivana Vucic's been training back there on Sundays, and a handful of other people. But the energy back there is electric. You can feel it as soon as you walk in the room, and that really pushes you to take it up to the next level when you show up.
Man, that's cool. I hear that Brett and Adam are training partners now, and from what I've seen, Brett has been growing tremendously. Would you attribute that to having moved out there and training, in your guys' presence and stuff?
Oh, without a doubt. Brett's very genetically gifted. But he just needed to be in the right atmosphere with the right people around him to be able to pull that potential out of him. And he's been nothing but impressive in everything that I've seen him do, because he's put on at least 40 pounds in the 6 months he's been training out here. And yeah, he's just absolutely killing it.
That's so cool. So what's it like when Dave comes out to town and puts you and Adam through a workout?
Well, there's a sense of comfort when Dave's in town.
Okay.
I'm never afraid of Dave's workouts. I'm known to go hard pretty much all the time. And when it comes to rising to the occasion and being able to perform, Dave just helps take me there. So I really love it when Dave comes to town, even though it's maybe some of the toughest workouts I'll ever do.
Really?
Actually, before Dave comes to town, I'll start talking shit to him, and I'll be like, Dave, I've been doing these workouts, and they're just incredible, and I don't think there's any way that you can bring anything that's going to top that. So you know how Dave is, so he's going to bring the heat.
Yeah.
And I'll rise to the occasion.
So that's music to my ears when I hear that, because I'm trying to think of what kind of medieval shit will we be doing on this visit. So
Give
it's always
me
good. But Dorian's absolutely right, man. The atmosphere in that gym is, you can really feel it literally when you walk in the door.
give me an example, Dave. What's what kind of stuff do you guys do on one of your workouts?
I mean, basically, I mean, as we were just saying, Dorian is incredibly tense. He's honestly like the hardest. I mean, you could throw the kitchen sink at him. He doesn't he's the only guy I've never seen not throw up from the leg work. I mean, honestly, seriously. I mean, so anyway, basically we do a lot of sometimes like leg pressing, a lot of ascending sets, descending sets. I think what makes it kind of intense is we make sure that we have, controlled negatives, and we're explosive on the pushing aspect of these movements. But let's say for leg pressing, hack squatting, we're not locking out on the knees and staying there. We're explosive on the way up, and then let's say when we're 87% of the way locked out, we have a controlled negative on the way down, and we make sure we're getting full range of motion on the bottom of the movements. A lot of people fail to come down where their hip flexor and IT band gets fully, relaxed. So we make sure we get enough depth on the way down, and I just think it's the weight we use with the amount of with the form that's the controlled negatives, and I don't know. I just think and basically the intensity that Dorian has, it's basically very catalyst. It's a catalyst,
That's cool.
Yeah.
Let me add to that. Some of these papers or some of these workouts that me and Dave do, if you look at them on paper, it looks like any other workout that anybody else would program.
Okay.
But what differentiates that workout is just the control of the rep. The technique's there, and just making sure everything's slow and perfect. That's where Dave really comes to.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's easy to kind of overlook, I think, my form sometimes when I'm really starting to feel that pain of a set. But if you've got somebody there to kind of just reinforce that, it makes it all the better, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
So what do you guys have going on now? From what I understand, your first show this year is going to be the Indie Pro, correct, Dorian?
Yeah, that's coming up. I believe we're 8 weeks and a day out.
Okay, 8 weeks out. And Dave, how's the prep coming along?
It's going really good. Actually, this is coming off of I would say Dorian's last 3 years working together. This is the best off season that's been had. We got feedback after the shows. We spoke to all the judges. Sandy, Steve, Maz, everybody, Tyler, and basically the feedback that we got was, to have a thicker back.
Okay.
Wider, thicker back. Thicker rhomboids, erectors, and everything. So basically, this off season was geared towards that. So we focus on a lot of compound movements, a lot of rows and stuff like that, and just basically really focusing on that. And I got to tell you, so Dorian pushed himself. He got PRs and all these movements, all these compound movements. And the way you're going to improve a body part is to be progressive with these compound movements. You know what I mean? Like you're doing a row for 315 for 8 reps. The next time, get either 12 reps or put a 10 and a 5 on and get the same amount of reps. So you want to be progressive with the weights are being used. So Dorian focused and was able to, really bring that body part up. It's a whole different back now, and I think a lot of this has to do is as we were going, back was trained twice a week, and basically there were 6 training days. And then we were talking basically with the intensity that Dorian trains with, we felt after a while that the 6 days was just the frequency was just too high and he wasn't able to recover. And then a couple months ago, we switched back down to just 4 days of training.
Okay.
And from there, that's where everything just clicked. That's where the PRs started really happening, the recovery, and the muscles seemed to have a chance to actually, recover. And I think there's a direct correlation with training intensity and training frequency. Some people do need. There's some people who just don't have that kind of intensity. There's a lot of good bodybuilders who train with decent intensity, but they get more out of there's more than one way to skin a cat, where there's more frequency of training and more volume.
Yeah.
So we found that with more condensed training and less frequency with higher intensity, it just seems that's when we really started seeing body parts change. So his back came up, but everything else came up as well because of this. His upper chest, legs are even round. His legs are already ridiculous, but they're already they're rounder and just more density and just more volume with all the muscle, with all the body parts. So segueing into prep, With the added tissue, as soon as we started, we set up, basically we have like the first, 4 days of the week, we're in lower calories. There's more of a deficit calorically speaking.
Okay.
So, carbs are lower, and our protein counts basically stay the same throughout the week. So basically we cycle towards the end of the week. We have, this first 4 days is lower carbs, slightly lower fats. So we're basically creating sensitivity for higher carb formats later in the week, for the days later in the week. So by having lower carbs, basically like, just an overview, like on training days, the carbs are basically centered, pre and post. When there's a couple non-training days on these lower carb segments. So basically the carbs are spread out at that point. And then later in the week, the carb counts come up, the fat counts come up. So we're still, we basically come up, another 1,500 calories or so, but there's still a deficit. In other words, the amount of muscle tissue that Dorian carries and the cardio and everything, the weight training. So even though calories are higher in the week, it's still a little bit of a deficit. So even though it's kind of cool because there's sensitivity created with the lower calories early in the week, lower carbs. And then there's, the really good productivity out of higher carb segments at the end. And it just seems to be a really good balance,
Right on.
So far so good. We're almost through our second week of this cycle. And it's been kind of interesting because this is going to be one of the shortest preps I've done in a long time.
No kidding.
Yeah, I think we started, like I said, we're like 11 days into this.
Wow, that's it, huh? All right, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, real short prep. 8 weeks, 5 days was our total. We were going to do 7 weeks, 5 days. When Dave came out for the Gary Udit seminar, I think I was tired of eating.
Okay.
And Dave's like, all right, let's pull the trigger on this a week early, which is great. But my weight's down. I was hitting, the mid 270s in the evenings in my bulk just like 2 weeks ago. Yep. And this morning I'm waking up right around 250.
No kidding.
Yeah, and the changes are coming on dramatically fast. So the fat's flying off my body, and it's a really welcoming sight. I'm ready to get it off of me. I always tell Dave, if I'm going to feel like I'm dieting, I want to look like I'm dieting. So I always push that fat off me quick as I can in that first part so I can see that change.
You must not have been too far out. You must have stayed in pretty decent condition through the off season to be able to do a shorter prep like this.
Yeah, I've always been very lucky with this sport. I can maintain in a full bulk, pretty solid 6-pack. I don't really get excessively fatty. I bet you I might have hit 10% body fat when we started cutting down.
Yeah, keep in mind, even like at 270, there's actually still like some ridges in the glutes. And I think the one reason why the fat's falling off right now is because it's just, there's this metabolic momentum, I think, that was created with the calorie structure in the off season. There's a lot of foods, keep in mind that we have foods that are like, we have protein combinations, there's a lot of, essential fats. This is not just, chicken and rice. You know what I mean? So I think with all the food varieties and just Dorian's basic metabolic rate, and with the extra tissue that was put on, you got to figure, a pound of fat, 3,500 calories to lose, but a pound of muscle requires a lot more to sustain. So when there's extra muscle that's been added, it's just now, even though calories are not like, we're not starving now, even on these low days, it's not starvation, there's still a good amount of calories there, but it's, I just think the amount of tissue that's been added is requiring more, more,
Sure.
So basically his body is it's just happening by itself,
Sure.
And it's just, it's, we talked about this before, like, we don't, there's macros, but to us, gram of protein, doesn't equal a gram of protein. There's different digestive rates and assimilation rates and amino acid profiles of different proteins. So we find that, with the variety and everything that we're working with, just, I think his metabolism is just on fire and his body is just chewing through the fat, And
that's cool. That's got to be a great feeling for you too, as a coach, to see that happening, this early on.
Well, yeah, it's basically like, we talked about a short prep because, after a while, and I want to touch on this later, cortisol levels, after a while you see, like, when there's some of these really prolonged preps, after a while the body just says, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to start storing. And then like cardio becomes less fat burning and more like, just energy burning. It's different. And, just even tapping into muscle tissue. So we just find that with this short, brief one, we're able to do this, I think, because of the added muscle tissue. There's just, basically, there's also basic math here with, caloric, expenditure versus, intake. And right now, it's just when it's shifted in the other direction, it's just numbers. Again, 3,500 calories per gram of fat for a pound of fat. So it's very predictable what's going on with this prep. That's what's really cool about it. So yes, it is, as you're saying, it is cool to see this way happen, because now we can just move our foods around, with the same caloric structure that we have, and Dorian's body is just doing the rest.
Nice.
So it's kind of cool. Yeah.
Hey, I want to back up for just a second. When you were talking about reducing the number of training days, Dorian, were you feeling that when you were doing like 6 days? I take it, was there a point where you were just saying, hey, you just felt like you maybe weren't recovering enough?
Yeah, absolutely. We finished our season last year with the Muscle Mayhem show. And the very next day, we talked to the judges and we talked about what we needed to improve upon. So I'm back at the gym. The first session I get back in the gym, I'm doing deadlifts heavy as I can.
Of course you were.
Well, I'm going to bring these weaknesses up. I'm competitive. I want to be able to beat these guys that I'm competing against. So I was just using the same training frequency that I was using in season. And for a couple months there, it was working great. My weight's coming up. I'm looking good. My strength is coming up. Then all of a sudden, it's just like I hit a wall about 2-3 months in. And, we needed to make a change. And the change was evident. And as soon as we backed those days down to doing just basically one body part a week, everything started moving in the right direction again.
Okay. Hey, Dave, how often do you do pictures with Dorian?
He sends me videos all the time. Like just the other day, he sent me a WhatsApp. The best thing is, stills are great, but seeing the body posing in motion, you can really see what's going on. So we use WhatsApp quite a bit. And there's pictures again, but we utilize the video.
Okay. Reason I'm asking is because I'm still on this the training structure you guys were doing. Did you physically see it in his physique? Dorian's telling you, he's giving you the feedback. Hey, he didn't feel like he was recovering as well and stuff. Was that something that you could physically see too? And then that's when you made the decision.
Because what happens is what happens after a while, and I'm sure a lot of this has to do with like cortisol. There's no doubt that's like the demon hormone. And I think after a while, what happens is that you start seeing a little bit less pop in the muscle. You start losing it's not like so much losing, but you see put it this way, there's the progression slows down. Okay. And actually in the pictures you can see I'm not saying the muscle looks tired, but I guess I'm saying the muscle looks tired. It looks less as I like when muscle is growing and recovering, to me it has what I call the tissue has that menacing look, that volumized, irritated look, like it's stimulated and it's in the process of nitrogen increase, that angry look of growing muscle. You know? And that's one thing that Dorian Yates had an advantage over his competitors. And it's interesting because he was training 4 days a week, and it just seemed like his tissue, he was always it looks like he was always growing into the contest. And I think that's what gave him that density and that nastiness on stage.
Yeah. So
after a while, we started seeing it's Dorian's feedback, whatever. And then you start seeing things when you go to the gym and you're like, fuck, I got to train again. Your body's telling you something. If you need to go take a lot of excessive naps, or if you're losing sleep, or you're losing appetite, the body, that's just a sure sign of overtraining. And keep in mind, we're talking about someone who trains way fucking harder than honestly, the training intensity will dictate how often I think there should be training and the frequency and the volume. Yeah. It's a lot harder to do a really short, brief, nasty, intense workout than it is to do a prolonged one. My stupid analogies that I have, in high school, when you're writing a 10-page book report, it's easier to just footnote and bullshit along. But when you have only a 3-page essay, it's harder to condense everything. And again, growing muscle is all about stimulating and recovery. So, the feedback what Dorian was saying and just what we were seeing and everything like that. And then again, as Dorian was saying, as soon as we went to 4 days, you started seeing growth in the tissue. And that's when he was able to get PRs. When you're progressive with the weights you're being used with good form, the muscle is going to respond. The training style will dictate what happens with the muscle.
I'm going to quote you on that. I liked this line you said. You said the angry look of growing muscle. I like the way that sounds. So you guys had the seminar that Gary Udit had held. That just happened not too long ago. I saw all the pictures, and you guys posted videos of training and stuff, during that week. Dorian, tell me, what did you learn from Gary at that?
Well, there's a couple good points he brought up. Pretty much everything I kind of knew, but I'm one of those guys. I've always been a bodybuilder who I go do my show, and I'll look at my own pictures. And, I'll assess my feedback from that point. And, I'm kind of learning that's not necessarily the best thing to do, because these judges, they want to see you improve. And if you go and ask them what needs improved and you make those improvements, they're going to be happy to see that. And they're probably going to reward you for it. But, as I was actually really lucky. So the day before the seminar, me and Dave are in there training. I believe we're training shoulders and arms. And we're probably 40 minutes in, and got a good pump going. Next thing you know, Dylan Armbrust picked Gary up from the airport, and he's bringing him through the gym. And, he locks eyes with me, and he comes over, and we greet each other and everything. And he starts kind of just following us around through the workout a little bit and just kind of watching what I'm doing. Yeah. And I could tell, he's not too busy. He's just kind of checking out the equipment and stuff and moving around. And that day was a real snowy day, and my the patient that I was supposed to have, a new patient right after my training session, canceled. So I went back there and I found Gary in the leg room, and he's not really doing anything. He's doing some hip adductors while texting. And, I just got in his ear and I said, hey, man, I'd appreciate it if you can kind of run me through some poses and take a look at what I'm working with and maybe get an idea how I can help you for tomorrow's seminar.
No kidding. That's cool.
So he took probably 35, 40 minutes and just ran me through all my poses. And the one change that he kind of made to all my poses is the way that I'm kind of positioning my rib cage and my thorax posture. Huh. Because I generally just kind of, what I was doing last season is I was kind of positioning myself so I could really crunch down on my abs and try to make an illusion of making a small waist that way.
Okay.
He was all about trying to pull his vacuum and pull my rib cage and thorax as high as I can to kind of create, that negative pressure in the gut so I can pull a vacuum in. Yeah. And, after looking at my posing, after taking a couple of videos of it, what that does, instead of, if you're looking at how much dimensional width you have from your sternum, if you're just standing up straight to the back of your spine, it's so thick with everybody. But when you can position yourself so you can push your sternum out so it's the most forward point in space, then lean back so the top of your traps are kind of the most furthest back point in space, that increases your thickness by, inches or whatever. It increases your thickness. And, that dimension alone is going to create an aesthetic appeal that's going to be appealing to the bodybuilding judge.
That makes total sense. By the way, I'm sitting here in my chair. I'm doing that right now. I'm like trying to visualize. I bet everybody at home is too. Mm-hmm. Could you see that, Dave? So Dorian makes this adjustment. Was that something that you could see right away then, that there was just a slight difference?
Honestly, yeah.
Okay.
And it really creates, and keep in mind, like, not only was this like important for the quarter turns, but also for the mandatories. So basically, Gary was having him keep his sternum up, and then even just going into, like, for example, like the other poses, and the idea with that whole concept of being like lifted up like that, it just opened everything up. So certainly from the front, it right away, it did create more width and thickness. It created the illusion of a wider shoulder structure, and it actually, in retrospect to like normally crunching down, it just made the waist look smaller. It actually just made the shoulder, with that being high, with the thorax being high in the air like that, it created more width, and it created a narrow look to the midsection.
Yeah. And I want to point something out to everybody at home too. The things that we're talking about, this is a tiny nuance. I mean, Dorian is literally one of the best people in the world at what he's doing. He's a pro bodybuilder. So these are tiny, tiny, small nuances. I mean, you've perfected your posing, after years and years. How often do you practice, Dorian?
Well, in the off season, I mean, I don't officially practice. I'll catch myself in front of the mirror and I'll do a pose or two.
Yeah, we talked about that.
But, as I get closer to season, I try to do it as frequently as possible. I'm thinking just this week alone, I went into the posing room, I stripped down, and I've gone through rounds of posing at least twice.
Okay.
Out of the 4 days this week so far. So that's a good point, and I think it's something that's kind of underrated in a way. But I really try to hit my posing hard as soon as prep starts because I try to set the tone and I try to get in the rhythm of doing that, because as I get towards the end of my prep and I'm really lean and I'm really depleted and I don't feel like doing it, I'm gonna be in better shape to do it, and that's gonna kind of help me get through it. And if for some reason I don't have the energy to do it towards the end, at least I got that work in at the beginning of the prep.
Yeah, that makes
so
sense.
I'm doing it about as frequently as I can. I do some form of posing every day, but I try to make Dave a video, once or twice a week to show the progression.
Yeah, and that's what I've had people tell me when they hit the poses just to send their pictures. It gives them a chance to practice. Dave, before we had recorded, you and I had talked about this. I know it's something that was really important to you is getting this posing down and practicing it ahead of time, being strong at it, so that you can be your best on stage. I mean, talk to me about what the issues can be if you haven't put your homework in.
Since being involved with this, I did my first teenage show in 1986. God, I'm old. 86. I've seen over the years that it's like, there's a difference. Like a lot of times, when you see people like, they say, oh, he's fading on stage, whatever. A lot of it has to do with not so much nutritional stuff. A lot of it has to do with like some people are just not putting in the posing practice, and they don't have quote unquote posing endurance.
Yeah.
And then you see on stage, you see the people shaking and sweating and actually like kind of flattening out, and then the muscle actually flattens out, and there's like that film, because like, and of course when you're stressed, again, cortisol levels. So it just seems that like the athletes that can work on their posing where it becomes, where not only does it on stage, it's supposed to look like it's effortless, but it's also physiologically speaking, when you have that posing endurance, you don't fade during the prejudging, and actually you can, I've seen competitors who should not lose to another competitor, win or place higher because their presentation and posing's down.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Look what happened at the Olympia. It was very evident that he, felt the posing endurance wasn't there, and when you have your hands on your knees and you're breathing and you're gasping, it's just body language up there. It's just very, it's not good, and not only that, but I've seen over the years when a bodybuilder really works on the pose. I don't just mean like going to like a round or two here and there. I mean like actually like during prep, like every day there should be like, you should go through like a round of prejudging. There should be quarter turns, be mandatories, and not only that, you should actually hold these poses longer than you would be holding them on stage.
Sure, that
and then
makes
by
sense.
the time you get on stage, it's like it's nothing. It's easy. It's butter at that point. It's icing. But not only that, but it's also the fact that you can actually etch in a lot more details in tissue, and I think more whistles and bells come out in an athlete's when there's a lot of posing, because it's just a deliberate motion, and it just seems like you could pull out a lot more detail and everything like that when there is prolonged posing and stuff. You could just see it in the physique. I think the muscle pops more on stage when you go into the posing, and again, this will. You don't want to fade during prejudging. You don't want body language up there like you're dying.
Yeah.
That's when you start seeing a lot of sweating and just, uneasiness on stage, and the judges pick up on that. Even Gary was talking about that. Gary was talking about how they can feel the energy off of an athlete. And if you're not prepared, you're also going to have less confidence, and you need to elude confidence up there. So by getting your posing in religiously up to the show, you're going to have posing endurance up there. You're going to have confidence up there. It's going to look effortless, or as best as you can, because obviously when you're posing on stage, it's more intense than any posing practice you have leading up to the show, so you might as well be prepared for it. And again, it just seems like more details and whistles and bells come out with a lot of posing leading up to an event.
That makes sense. So Dorian, we saw you a ton last year. You were at like the Tampa, the Indy, New York Pro. How many shows did you do last year?
5. That's the most I've ever done in a season.
Whew. How did your season go as far as posing goes? You know, say the 5th show. How did you feel on stage posing compared to the first? Out of curiosity.
Oh man, 5th show. It's kind of funny because my posing routine kind of developed, and I added more to it as the season went on.
No kidding.
And I think my posing routine ended up being like 2 minutes and 20 seconds long.
Okay, nice.
And, just between the guest posings I've been doing, well, we had a line of shows there. It was like 1 week we did New York Pro. The very next week we did Cal Pro. I had a guest posing here at the Mile High Pro. Then we had that Muscle Mayhem, 4 shows in 4 weeks.
That's a lot.
So, by the time I hit that fourth show in that stretch, my posing endurance was up, my confidence was up, I was comfortable on stage, and I was able to go out there and present really without any issue. So without a doubt, the more you practice, the more you do it, the more you feel comfortable up there and confident up there, the easier it's going to be.
Damn, I didn't realize they were that close back to back. Dave, how did you peak him so often?
It's tough, I mean, basically it's, we made adjustments in between shows. And, what's really important if you're doing show to show, I mean, a lot of athletes, they make the mistake of like, okay, eat like pigging out like crazy, like, okay, got to go out and eat like crazy after the show. And then sometimes it takes a couple days to get back, get back into it, whatever. But when you have show after show back to back, you can't do that, Yeah. So it's really important to get into like a depletion, like, immediately afterwards. I mean, you can be a little bit of a refeed that night. So basically, like going back to depletion right afterwards for a couple of days, that's what basically kind of resets for the following week.
And from what it sounds like, what you were telling us on how you guys are running the diet, that's pretty much what you would have done anyway, right? You fill them up toward the end of the week, and then you kind of lower the carbs at the start, right?
Well, pretty much, and that's actually like it's actually what's happening now with the prep is actually this is setting him up for that scenario for prep. So rather than, we've talked about this before, rather than making it, okay, it's peak week, gotta fucking, deplete, low, pull out soda, do all this crazy stuff, You're rolling the dice. You're better off, like, basically his body's going to get into a rhythm. So the last week, I mean, there'll be some manipulations with water and sodium, whatever, but it's not going to be a drastic, quote-unquote, peak week. We're basically going to be doing what his body does. And that's just going to set the tone for that. So sort of that's basically what happened with last year's shows. There had to be, depletion phase for a couple of days right afterwards, and then to reset. When you have like 5 or 6 weeks in between, it's different. You could have like a little bit of a rebound, whatever. But there had to be resetting each week.
That makes total sense.
To peak out each week.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So we are looking at, about 8 weeks till the Indy. Do you guys have any plans for anything else this season?
Well, I think we're going to kind of play it based off how I do.
Ah, okay.
I want to do my season pretty similar to last season. I put a lot of energy and financial investment in to get myself ready for a show. So It doesn't make a lot of sense just to do one of them. If I'm in shape, I want to knock out as many as I possibly can. But I was talking to Dave, and we were just kind of re-strategizing based off the fact that the Puerto Rico show was added to the list.
Okay.
Initially, we were thinking about starting a little bit later, potentially starting with a New York Pro. Then, since I don't have that 8 weeks between Indy and New York, I can carry on for maybe 8 weeks after that, and maybe do the Chicago and the Tampa. But Adam Young, he's a good close friend of mine and a 212 bodybuilder. He kind of got into my ear and he's like, "Hey man, I really want to do the Indy. Let's do it." And I'm like, yeah. And I grew up in Indiana, so that's kind of like my stomping ground. So
nice.
It didn't take too much to convince me. But we just kind of re-strategized the game plan just last week. I want to come in and just absolutely knock Indy out. I want to make a statement. And depending on how I place there, if I can win this show, I think I might have enough momentum and political swing to potentially place well at New York. But if I don't place well at Indy, I don't think New York's going to be the smartest move to do. So the following week's Puerto Rico. So based on how I do on Indy, if I win, I'll go and do the New York, then I'll do Puerto Rico. If I don't win Indy, I'll probably just go straight to Puerto Rico. After Puerto Rico, I believe the Muscle Mayhem 2-3 weeks later.
Okay.
Yep.
What were you going to say, Dave?
No, it's kind of cool because, like, you know, we'll see how everything rolls. And, you know, from my perspective, it's kind of cool because, you know, coaching both Adam and Dorian, you know what I mean, as a team, it's kind of cool. We hit these shows, you know, the first two like that. So, you know, if Puerto Rico is needed.
You know, I think here's one thing I want to make note of to everybody. I feel like, you know, you bring up, you know, Dorian, that, you know, you'll see how it goes. It's like you never know who's going to show up. You never know what the judges are going to want to see on that particular day. But you guys have put your homework in. You had an opportunity to have some really cool time with Gary from what it sounds like. Plus, you guys have all the feedback from last year. You've been working for an entire year now to improve your package to be the best you that you can be. And realistically, that's really all you can do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. I think it's very important, this meeting that we had with Gary, because he saw me, what I looked like in a fully bulked phase, and he looked impressed.
Nice.
One of the things that stand out in my head that he said it kind of under his breath, and he didn't really mean to say it to me. I think he just kind of commented. You know, I hit my side chest, and he kind of turned his head in kind of awe, and he's like, "Damn, that's a lot of steaks." So he got to see what I look like when I'm in full bulk, and you know, and without dieting at all, I came in and I showed him what it looked like, and I was I have a very impressive package in the off season. So if I make some changes and come in a very impressive way, I think he's going to reward me for it. So, you know, besides doing everything I can do personally to make the best physique that I can, I think I've also had some decent political moves and just being able to be in front of the right people and, you know, let them see what I'm bringing.
That's cool, man. Is there anything else we should talk about the prep? Because I wanted to take some time to talk about your career as a chiropractor, but I don't want to close the door on this too soon. Guys, is there anything that I'm missing here, Dave?
No, I just got to say, like, this prep is really going like clockwork. I mean, we put our plan together, and it's just really cool to see it come to fruition, like exactly as we anticipated. And to me, that is extremely rewarding to really see it happen just before our eyes. You know, we had one thing we did this year is that we put everything together like really months in advance. I mean, we sat down, like, because I come out there periodically, and it was kind of cool. We planned everything out together, and so just by having, like, we had this game plan set up going, so now we can make adjustments, but they're not like, you know, like we're sticking to the plan, and we're seeing his body come to fruition with what we had set up months out. And I think that's really, really cool. That's a very cool thing to see. So
I could add this. Me and Dave have been working together. Let's see. I met him at 2015 North Americans.
Okay.
So we've been working together over 3 years now. And before working with him, I've always coached myself, and I did a pretty good job at it. And without a doubt, Ad and Dave has helped me tremendously. But I had this conversation with Dave. I'm like, Dave, you know, if I didn't have you as a coach, I don't think I'd have a coach. I'm just lucky to have Dave because we click intellectually and spiritually even. And, you know, I don't think I'd have a coach if I didn't have Dave. So I'm not a big fan of jumping around coach to coach to coach. I don't think that's a great idea. But this time that we spent together, Dave understands my body, and you know, I had the best understanding. Nobody knows my body better than me.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you know, along the way, I got to show Dave what's going to happen, or give him a prelude of what I think is going to happen. And after proving this time and time again, you know, Dave has a lot of faith and confidence in my input. So, and the fact that we wanted to do a short prep this year, I think we started for Indy last year. We started January 1st.
No kidding.
This year we started right at the beginning of February. So we're taking about a month time out of the prep. But if you look at the photo log from what we were doing last year,
yeah,
right around the 6-week mark, I was almost ready.
No kidding. So is
that's why we really we talked, and so I really wanted to do a shorter prep just because his body, it just clicks so fast. Rather than, and this goes back to, we don't want him like worn out and stuff like that. So again, like we talked, I mean, Dorian, correct me if I'm wrong, right? We really wanted a fresh look to the muscle, and not like that. Sometimes when there's a prolonged prep, you know, cortisol, like muscle gets washed out looking, whatever. So, you know.
Yeah, I can speak for myself. I know the longer I prep, the more flat my muscles look.
Yep.
And, you know, if I've already gone to that point where I've got my body fat down to nothing already, and it's hard to, A, keep it there, or B, try to get it back down there again. It's like my first shot getting down, I'll get the leanest at that point.
No kidding.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Huh. How does your strength usually handle through the process?
You know, it wanes. I bet you I lose somewhere between a quarter and a third of my overall power.
Okay.
And it really depends on the day and how much food I consume.
Yeah.
If I go in and train after 4 days of low carbs, I don't expect to be able to pull PRs, but the only thing I can expect to do is my very best.
Yeah.
And, you know, I coach a lot of bodybuilders too, and I've seen them have a lot of issues with that. If they go in and all of a sudden their strength wanes significantly, freaks them out in the head. But I mean, you can't expect to not feed yourself optimally, then go perform optimally.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So let's shift gears just a little bit here. Tell me about your work as a chiropractor.
Well, like I said, I practice at an Armbrust Pro Gym. I've been practicing professionally here in the state of Colorado for almost 9 years now.
Nice.
I started as an associate doctor when I first moved to the state. I did that for a little while. Then probably within the first year, I decided, you know, I'm tired of working with all these patients and making all this money for somebody else.
Yeah.
And, you know, I switched gears. As a bodybuilder, it was tough to be an associate doctor because I was putting in at least 50 hours a week.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes I'd be adjusting 50 patients a day.
Yeah.
Just think of the physical demand it takes to adjust 50 patients is significant. Then to go after work and go try to perform and work out, you know, it taxed my workouts.
Yeah.
So when I decided to make my own business, Chiro Omega, all of a sudden I went down to working maybe a quarter of the hours and making about 4 times as much money.
Nice.
Yeah, it was one of the best business decisions I've ever decided to move on. But predominantly, you know, back when I was working as an associate doctor, I was working with general population. I was working with kids, babies, people who were, you know, in a disease state, not healthy.
Yeah.
But now I'm in a very great position because I'm working with the type of people that I want to work with. I'm a wellness practitioner, and my focus is on prevention.
Okay.
Prevention of disease processes in the future, and prevention of injury associated with biomechanics. So I'm in an awesome facility where I can, you know, treat the patient and get proper alignment and work on their body, their spine, their muscles, and get everything in tune. Then if for some reason, you know, I need to identify what's causing the problem, I can take them right out on the floor and see what type of exercise has injured them and show them where their biomechanical flaw is.
Oh, wow. Wow. I wish I've had that luxury in my life. I've gone, you know, to the chiropractor a lot of, you know, through my life, but then I have to figure out myself, you know, how I end up hurting myself again. To actually have the opportunity to have your chiropractor right there with you. That would be amazing. Plus, I'm sure that gives you a lot of insight, seeing what they can and can't do.
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm very lucky to be in that spot. I can play to my strengths as a practitioner. It seemed like when I was an associate doc, the only thing I could do is give advice based off of what I hear and adjust people. But now I can actually take people through biomechanical analysis sessions and perfect their biomechanics. And it really goes a long way. If I can identify the way that somebody's going to hurt themselves before they actually do it, you know, that's all. That's big. It's big.
What are some of the more common issues you see with people who do what we do, bodybuilding and weightlifting?
Specifically with big bodybuilders, you know, it seems like almost every class has their own issues. Bodybuilders get big and thick through the chest, so that's going to almost create an upper cross type of syndrome, which pulls the shoulders forward. That's going to take their spine out of a neutral position and put them in flexion. Then you're opening up the door for a bunch of different things in terms of motion insufficiency, in terms of increasing your potential for injury. But as soon as you get in that flex state, there's a term I coined. It's called the rule to the spine. And it's basically, if any part of your spine goes into flexion, the rest of your spine is going to want to go into flexion with it. So, I mean, you could test it on yourself.
What do you mean?
Pull your head down.
Yeah.
Like if you pull your head down and take your cervical spine into flexion, you'll feel your ass wants to roll under you. If you're standing there and you roll your ass under you so that your lumbar spine goes into flexion, you'll feel your head shoots out in front of you.
Okay, I can see that. I never would have thought of that either.
And everything works together. So a lot of these big bodybuilders, you get in this flex state, you know. Next thing you know, when they're trying to move into their squats, you're going to see this huge butt wink at the bottom of their motion. That's just that's taking the stress off the legs and putting it on the low back and opening up the door for potential spinal injury.
No kidding.
But, you know, that's bodybuilder specific. It seems like every category almost has their own issues they deal with.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I could totally imagine that. I've dealt with a lot of low back and SI issues, and I recently started training my glutes. I had never done like glute specific training, and I'll tell you what, man, I can see a huge difference in how protected my low back feels just having a better mind muscle connection and activating the glutes more than they had been before.
Absolutely.
It's taken me 10 years to figure that out, though. That's the problem.
Another thing, kind of me as a trainer, I try to identify is people's structural insufficiencies. People, as they start to develop, you know, they'll create stronger muscle groups and they'll create weaker muscle groups. And I find as people either start to fatigue or people start to feel like they're uncomfortable with emotion, they're always going to revert to their strengths. So, for example, I find there's a lot of people who are quad dominant, and people who are quad dominant, when they start squatting, you know, and especially as they start moving into those reps where they're hitting failure, they're going to start loading up their quads and just using their quads. I think that's a big mistake. And what I try to do is exploit people's weaknesses and make their weaknesses their strengths. So I'm a big fan of really isolating things and getting people to use these muscles that are kind of the weaker muscles. For example, with a squat, a lot of times it's people's glutes and upper hamstrings. They won't let that range of motion happen through there, and they'll try to just press through their quads by knee flexion.
Okay.
So by getting your hips to push back and elongating the hamstring and putting that glute under tension, you know, that's going to fix that functional insufficiency that we're seeing. Yeah. And that's based specifically off what you're just telling me, you know.
Yeah, I can picture it exactly. That's exactly what my issue has been. That's crazy. So, would you have any other suggestions for me? I'll be selfish here. I'm going to make this all about me for a minute. Do you have any other suggestions for a guy in my situation, Dorian?
Well, do you understand that term, the butt wink?
I absolutely do. Yeah.
So basically, what that is, you know, for maybe somebody who doesn't know and is listening, as you're hitting the bottom of your squat, your hamstrings come to tension, and it pulls your ass under you, and it pulls your lumbar spine into flexion. It
kind of tucks it, right?
Yeah. So I would suggest, as you're hitting the bottom of your squat, if you're butt winking, you're doing one of two things. You're either A, going too deep, and your hamstrings are pulling you under. Yeah. Or B, you're focusing on using your quads. So as you're hitting the bottom, you know, I would just make sure we're really creating a big angle at the hip by pushing our ass back. That's the number one thing. And make sure you're doing that on the reps that you're even starting to hit failure on. I'd rather you hold perfect technique and maybe fail at 12 reps opposed to trying to get 16 reps by using some motor pattern that's going to have you use your quads. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It totally does. This has had to have been such a big influence on your own training. I'm sure you think of all these things while you're in the gym yourself, and I'm sure you're staying honest with yourself then in looking at all these aspects while you're doing movements.
You can see it when he trains.
Yeah?
Yeah, like when Dorian, it's just not the legs, whatever. Like because of his biomechanical understanding of the body, like when he's doing chest, you can see he's trying to take out his anterior delt as much as possible. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so he's actually like, you could see it in his training. And I got to say, that's one reason why it's impressive with the training intensity he has, because he's doing these heavy weights with that biomechanical form, which is really cool to see.
That's pretty cool. This is awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing how everything comes together. Dorian, I've seen you posting videos and stuff on your Instagram. Do you let everybody know, anybody who's not following you, where they can go in social media if they want to follow along with what you're doing?
Okay. I've been putting most of my emphasis on Instagram lately, and my handle on Instagram is Chiromega, CHIROMEGA. And I usually share that stuff right over to Facebook, and I'm just Dorian Haywood DC on Facebook. I haven't been posting so much in this past couple weeks or so, but I always say the first 3 weeks of the diet are the worst, because all of a sudden you're flat because you're not eating. You're fat as you're going to be.
Right.
So I don't really feel comfortable posting stuff in that time frame. But here in about a week, I think I'm going to have a significant amount of body fat off me, and I'm going to be able to show the improvement. So I'm going to really start posting leading up to the Indy Pro, showing my weekly progress. It's something I've always liked to do.
Hell yeah. That's cool.
So, yeah, check me out on Instagram. I'll be posting. Also, I'll be sharing stuff with Cellulose and probably Bodybuilders Without Borders, because they always like getting my updates as I'm leaning into a show as well.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good place to follow. Do you have any type of a website or anything set up for your chiropractic work?
I used to, chiromega.net, but I wasn't getting the type of traffic. Honestly, the best thing that I have in terms of generating patients is just word of mouth. People can come see what I do and experience what I do. They tell others about it, and they come see me. So, I just wasn't generating a lot of traffic on that website, so I just decided to shut it down and leave it be.
Yeah, I can't imagine you'd need it now either. Just it sounds like with what you have going on, you're just in an awesome groove, being through Armbrust Pro Gym and just having all the cool people that come through there on a regular basis, man. It's really cool to see that, man. It makes me happy to see a bodybuilder who is not only successful at their sport, but successful at the lifestyle, man. It's so important, isn't it? That you because it's a huge point, man. You've created your life around being able to do what you love doing.
Yeah, for me, it's absolutely essential. I mean, before I decided to pursue exercise science and get a degree in that, I was a bodybuilder. But after my exercise science degree, it was like the reason I think I thrived so well and did good in chiropractic college is because of my knowledge of bodybuilding and being a bodybuilder. I'm in a position where I don't have any big sponsors. Dave's pretty much my number one sponsor. I've got a couple companies who do a little bit for me here and there. But, some of these bodybuilders are living off the fact that they have sponsors and making it to the shows for the fact that they're sponsored.
Yeah.
Man, I'm self-sponsored. If I don't have a successful business and if I'm not making money to promote my hobby and my passion of bodybuilding, I'm not going to be doing well with it.
Yeah.
So there's a direct correlation between the success of my business and the success of my bodybuilding.
It's got to get tough too. I mean, toward the end of a prep, because I understand where you're coming from, man. I mean, you're holding all this together and being able to still be your best as a doctor and your best as a bodybuilder, man. It's a lot to juggle. I give you a lot of props for that.
There towards the end of the prep, it does get tough, but it has its positives and its negatives.
Yeah.
And I've done this so many times. I'm a pro, Scott. I'm a pro. And I've done this so many times. It's like I know how much work capacity I have. Normally, if I'm towards the end of let's say I'm 3 weeks out from a show. If I can train 3 people that day or 3 groups that day, so 3 hours worth of training, adjust less than 5 people, and get my own training in, that's like a perfect day because it keeps me busy enough to not focus on how hungry I am, or it keeps me distracted from maybe focusing on something that I shouldn't.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it keeps me busy enough to keep myself financially stable.
I like that. That's cool.
So there's definitely, but then again, if I'm working like a 12 or like an 8-hour day, there comes a point where I just feel like I'm not positively influencing the people I'm working with. And I've got this saying that if I feel like I can't give somebody 100% of what I'm worth, I'd rather not give them anything. So I kind of know if I can train, no more than 3 sessions a day and a certain amount of people to get adjusted.
Yeah.
And if I stick to that, that's my rhythm. I've learned that, and that's the rhythm I just kind of stick with. And it just keeps me going and keeps everything positive.
Yeah, that's badass, man. It really is. Dave, you're a lucky guy. You are, man. You're a lucky guy to have a cool client like Dorian, cool guys like Adam Young.
I'm a lucky guy to have a guy like Dave.
Honestly, that goes without saying. Like, look, there's a lot of people who coast along when they're getting ready for a show. And there's a lot of bodybuilders who just kind of rest on the laurels of their genetic predisposition, whatever. But honestly, to have someone who, I don't have to worry about, with Dorian or Adam, I don't have to worry about these guys like fucking off in their diet. Like, I sleep peacefully at night knowing that they're giving it 110%. And you know what I mean? The sky's the limit with that.
That's cool.
I am very, very lucky to have someone who will put in, put the heart and soul into it. And then what more can you ask for?
It's the hard workers that I see gravitate toward you too. Like, we talked to Jonas a little while ago and we've talked to Adam. It seems like the guys that gravitate toward you are hard workers. I feel like that says something about you too. People that are like us are the people that gravitate towards us.
Let me say this. When I first met Dave, Big Russ Allen introduced me.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And, this was, like I said, at the North Americans in 2015, and after I got like a 12th place finish. So I'm kind of demoralized, and I'm kind of looking for some answers and maybe a new avenue. And just initially, upon meeting Dave, I don't know if it's his appearance, his personality, or what, but there's a level of intensity associated with this guy that drew me to him. So it's not just the intense individuals are drawn towards him just because they're intense. Dave's just as intense. There's intensity there, kind of a brotherhood and a camaraderie that's almost unspoken. I could tell this guy is the way that he is just upon first meeting him. That's why I said we kind of got this spiritual connection. There's something to be said about Dave's intensity, bringing that intensity out of the people that he works with.
I can totally see that.
Yeah, thanks, man. I was just raised. I grew up in the couple generations I've been around a couple generations of the sport, from the 80s, whatever. And I was just always raised around intensity and shut up and squat. And, it's just basically there's a big pussification of the sport that's going on, just the way some people train. They just want to live on the hammer strength. So I was just kind of raised that way. So again, to have these guys Dorian, to have these guys work that way is just, I'm very passionate about this stuff. So to have this kind of work ethic from these guys is just couldn't be happier. Can't ask for more. It's just the way it is.
Dave, while we got you here, before we go, speaking of intensity, I got to ask you for a Slayer update. When was the last time you saw Slayer, and when's the next time you're going to see Slayer?
I just want to say that I'm proud to say, okay, I do have some hearing damage from this, but so the last time we saw them was in San Jose. So I saw them 4 times on the leg last year. This is a farewell tour, and that was my 51st Slayer show, 51 since 1990.
Jeez.
So going through my midlife crisis, this is their last leg of their retirement tour. So we're gonna fly out with a couple friends to see them May 2nd in Phoenix, and then my friends and my wife are gonna fly home. And like a geek, I'm gonna fly the next morning to Albuquerque, New Mexico. My friend Sam's out there. We're going to steam out there.
No kidding.
I
And,
think I'm going to join him for that one.
Oh, no kidding.
I got a chance to join him once last year for Slayer.
Yeah, check this out. So the whole time I was hyping the Slayer for Dorian, I was like, man, you got to see how loud they play, whatever.
Yeah.
So, of course, fucking Murphy's Law, the one place where they play, this is Fiddler's Green in
Denver.
Over there in Denver. So, of course, this fucking venue had, noise regulation where you can only play over a certain limit.
You're kidding me.
So fucking sucked. It was a great show, whatever.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I love the show. Go ahead.
the beauty of it is Dave's been hyping this show up, and he's been all these Slayer shows.
Yeah.
And the first Slayer show that I go to Dave, he gets kicked out for being too violent in the mosh pit.
What?
He gets escorted out of the show.
Dude, I have not heard
in front of these bouncers to be like, "Hey, man, he's not going anywhere."
I have not heard this story. What happened? Nobody.
I just real quick. So what happened was this is like the second to last song, and honestly, like I'm watching. Now, keep in mind when it's
And
really
he's been
nice,
warned already. He's been apprehended.
He's a big dude.
yeah, because Anthrax was on, and they said I was punching people, but I wasn't. Anyway, this fucker like smashed into me, whatever. So I got all pissed. So I started like, I
He
grabbed.
looked
him,
like a rhinoceros charging this guy through a crowd, and the crowd split like the Red Sea.
I was kind of pissed. So these like, you know, security, like normally at a Slayer show, security lets you do whatever you want. I mean, I've seen some violent. I mean, I've been to shows where the skinheads are beating up, and the security won't do anything. But anyway, so this venue was like, not only was there sound reduction, so Slayer couldn't play at their full blast, but there was also
which pissed you off, I'm sure.
Yeah, it did. So we're gonna have a rematch at that Albuquerque show where there is no noise reduction.
Oh my gosh, man! Oh man! I just laughed till I had tears in my eyes. That was the funniest visual, like a rhinoceros parting the Red Sea.
I've never been thrown a Slayer show, and I've been like involved with like, I mean, let's just put it this way: there's been a lot of violence at these shows. You know what I mean? I've never been close to getting kicked out, so this is just like, what the fuck? Anyway, but. You know, the security guards have tampons at that show, at that venue. But anyway, this will be really cool in Albuquerque.
Awesome. Well, listen, guys, I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens at Indy and what happens for the season. I'm excited to see the improvements that you're bringing, Dorian, and check out the new posing that you're doing. We've got your information. I'm gonna tag you in our posts, guys. You can find links and stuff in our show notes. And Dave. One more time, I know you've already told us this every show, but if people want to work with you, how can they reach out to you?
I'm at Dave Kalick, Kalick, on Instagram and or Facebook. You could also shoot me an email at Dave Kalick, DaveKalick at Yahoo.
Okay.
Reach out that way.
And Dorian, do you have an email or anything in case anybody wanted to reach out and work with you?
Yeah, Kyromega at live.com.
All right. Guys, this has been a hell of a time. I really appreciate you, both of you. Dorian, thanks for coming on, man. This is really cool.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Dave, as always, man, thanks for your time, man. And thanks for bringing on another one of your great guys. This is really cool.
Well, you bet. We'll do more.
All right, guys, for another episode of Advices Radio with IFBB Pro Dorian Haywood and Dave Kalick, Scott McNally. We'll see you soon.
Advices Radio Network.